Hey y'all, I'm April.
And I'm Caroline.
And this
is your Bloody Happy Hour.
Caroline, are you ready for this?
This is your newest guilty pleasure.
It's the bloodiest part of your week.
Did we say something about it also being happy hour?
Show did.
Because we about to be sipping on some murder. Bloody Happy Hour.
Hey y'all, we're here for episode 2.
Woo! Casey Anthony, episode 2.
Anthony, if you're not pissed yet, you will be now.
We're just going to get right into it. We're covering the Peacock series, quote unquote, documentary, whatever bullshit. So here we are. And we're basically doing like a little rewatch of it for you because we don't want you to have to go buy a Peacock to watch this. So we're going to tell you about it. So we did episode 1. Here we go. Episode 2.
Yep.
Also if you're listening, we love it. But also if you want to see the slides, we're doing little slides and pictures that kind of helps describe what we are talking about. And you can go watch us on YouTube. So check it out. We're starting off November 2008, 5 months after Kaylee disappeared. So this episode starts talking about how they believe that Kaylee is dead, but there is no body that has been found. Okay, and then they have, Casey over here. She's on a beach. She's just like a photographer now, I guess. I'm not sure. She's talking about how she cries herself to sleep, and she just cries. She's charged with first-degree murder for lying to investigators. She's over here on this beach. Her hair's blown in the wind. Who is she? She's just living her best life. Yeah, there's little Kaylee, and just a little cute little baby. She's been found, or the body, it says, although the child's body has not been found. There's Kaylee. Then we have our first jail phone call. With her parents. Her mom is basically saying that the entire country is looking for Kaylee. And Casey is over here and she believes that Kaylee is still okay. So that's what we have there. She says the last day that I saw her is the day that she disappeared.
Okay,
go.
So this is what got me, because she's about to tell you, are you about to tell them the story? Because she's gone through all this, and so people are like, what happened though? Like, on the day she disappeared, what happened? What's your story? Like, what's your recollection? You came here, you got to be telling us that part, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so she's crying. I forgot why she gathered some tears at this point, but she's crying, and she does tell her story of what she remembers of the day Kaylee disappeared, right?
Yes.
But you just showed a jailhouse story of where she's like, Kaylee's all right, right? I know in my heart, like, I know she's all right.
Yeah.
But now she's telling her story. So what's the story?
So she said it was a normal night. She put Kaylee to bed. They had breakfast in the morning. Casey wasn't feeling good. She went and laid down. She closed the door, turned the TV on. She brought Kaylee in. Kaylee laid next to her. She said she had been a light sleeper her entire life because she was used to someone coming in and opening the door while she was asleep. She said that she's setting it up. She said she was used to being on alert, and that whenever Kaylee came and slept with her, she would put pillows up, and she would put the bed against the wall. She had pillows up so that Kaylee wouldn't fall off the bed. And she said that whenever she went to sleep at this time, she thought that she locked the doors, but maybe not. And she knew that her dad was home, but she fell asleep. Okay, and so she's basically, all of that is what has been said in the documentary. This next, right here, is me. She's living in the same house with this man who she is now claiming has raped her over and over and over again. That's what she's insinuating. That's what she's saying. But she can't remember if she locked the door or not. She can remember all these other things, but she can't remember if she locked the door.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Why is she still living there?
She
Okay.
refutes that. Remember, she says,
Nope. And would you remember if you locked the door?
I don't know.
Oh, I know these are just my. This is what I'm thinking as I'm watching it.
Yeah.
I just said survey says that's a lie, but So then she says that she's woken up by her dad shaking her and asking, "Where's Kaylee? Where's Kaylee?" And that's whenever she goes and they start looking for Kaylee.
Yeah.
Okay. So they start looking for Kaylee. They look in the garage. They look in her brother's room, or Casey looks in the garage, looks in the brother's room, looks in the bathroom. She says she didn't have to look in the pool because right as she's outside looking in like her playhouse, she runs into her dad like face to face, and her dad is holding Kaylee.
And she's soaking wet.
And she's soaking wet. Okay. And she says I can see him standing there in her arms. Okay? Okay. And she goes through these angry face emotions. She says dad tells her it's her fault, that she caused it. Caused what? I don't know what she caused. And Casey says Kaylee was very heavy and cold, and she stared at her, not knowing what to do. She said her dad takes her. So dad has her. Then Casey takes her, but then dad takes her back and is like, she's going to be okay, and walks away. And I was like, wait, so you're giving all these specific details, but you, like, why are you not, you're holding your child who's limp and cold and wet, and you're just going to let your dad take the child and you're not going to do anything about it?
Or call 911.
Or call 911? So what she does here also is she starts talking about how she's like, he walked away and he walked through the screen doors, and she starts giving all of these details.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is where I start getting some vibes. She's giving specific details. She just, like, this is I'm bringing it up again because it's so similar Amber Heard vibes. Because when Amber Heard did her trial, she was like, I remember seeing the dirty carpet, and I remember this, like, and so it's almost like you're making up these extreme, like, instead of saying dad walked through, because what she said in this documentary was like, dad walked through the screen doors and this. Usually be like, he like left and went through the door. But the fact that she says screen door, it's like those little things which seem like.
And she'll say she wrapped around the palm tree through the path into the screen door.
Yes.
And, put the latch up on the door. Like all these details that does not even matter to what she's actually saying, but she's overloading.
Yes.
Non-important facts, hoping that people were like, oh, if she remembers that and that and that, it has to be true.
Yes.
Who remembers like that she passed the palm tree? So
that's like the signs of like that is what actually is borderline and histrionic personality disorders.
And I think we're getting there next too, because doctor says she had no psychopathic.
Oh yeah, because
traits.
they did the whole MMPI on her.
Yeah. Okay, so that's her story. That's what she remembers. She has never come out and said this. So if you haven't heard Casey's story, it does come out in episode 2 that she was there when she disappeared. She knew that her daughter was wet, limp, lifeless, cold. And then she lets Daddy, who she's about to tell us in her words how horrible Daddy is, she lets Daddy take care of it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Because she was brainwashed.
Brainwashed to what? Trust him, not trust him? Or no, she says it's like Stockholm syndrome.
Yes.
That even though he does these crazy things to her, she still has a what's it called? Like loyalty to him, and like
Yes.
that's her dad. Like she wants to trust him, or whatever it may be. So that's what gets me is like you're telling your side of the story, but then you keep saying over and over. You said just in the jailhouse phone call, you're going to keep saying she thought Kaylee was okay the whole time.
Yeah.
I thought
she was okay.
Even up until they found the body, I thought she would be okay.
She was okay.
Yeah. Which the story you just told us she's not okay. Like maybe I would feel if I had that story and I said here and Dad says I'm going to take care of it, I'm going to say, well, let's go to the hospital together.
Take care.
Or let's call 911. Or what does taking care of it mean? And so then I go out and then go home and call the house 1,000 times. So that's coming up too. Is like she shows her phone records.
I just can't get over the fact that how is all this going to happen, and then you're going to make up the story about this nanny.
Yeah,
Zanny, and they barely even touch on Zanny the nanny here, and that was.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing to touch on after she admits she lied.
I know. But
okay, here's incarcerated friend.
Oh, now
what
this is her.
Was this? Okay, you just did a story. Go ahead and tell about her because it reminded me of a story you just did. Go ahead.
Oh, well,
Robin.
I just was thinking that this is another one of her friends who's not cute and who's not, I think she has a pattern.
Blonde and chunky.
And I mean, I'm not normal looking person. But I just think that she's just manipulating somebody else. And she talks about how they basically write letters to each other because they're both in solitary confinement. And the only way you can talk to somebody is by writing letters. So then she's like almost like love bombing this lady. I'm pretty sure this lady would go down on her in a second, or I'm sure, or whatever. She talks about her jail experience and how she has no one in her corner. And, I don't know. This is just this lady. This lady goes on to talk about the letters, and she reads the letters that Casey wrote her, and just as how she's on her side
and how they seemed authentic. And this is where Casey says, this is where her memories start to flash back. She starts to remember doors opening and doors closing, and this is how she describes her dad, how her dad would come in. Oh, first she's no. First she tells this prison guy that her brother used to come in.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that she confesses in these letters to prison inmate Robin is that her brother would come in and do these things.
Oh.
Is this the room? This is her description.
Hell.
Okay.
Now we go to this damn whatever, this cartoon that they made. They made like a cartoon. I'm yelling. They did this whole cartoon interactive whatever. What do you call this? Reenactment. It's a cartoon. It's so cringe.
So she describes
it's this animated creepy story.
Yeah.
And it's like she's vividly describing her abuse. Like, this is what she's like. He slowly moved my hair off of my neck, which an abuse victim was never going to give details like that. Like, oh, he slowly moved my hair off of my neck. No. She sounds like she's writing a porn, and it's real creepy, and that's all I got from it.
Okay, so she's describing how she would be sleeping, and she would hear the door open up, and her dad would pull back the covers and slide in under her, and then his hand would go slowly up He would move the hair. Her hand would go slowly up the shirts, around to her breast, but she describes it very vividly, almost like a porn.
That's actually that's what she exactly said.
What?
What you just
said. Like a porn?
Yes. No.
Oh, I know.
Yes.
Yes. And she goes into detail, and she does this. This is how so many people are believing her, because so many people had something like that happen in their childhood. So she's appealing to those childhood abused people. Now, I'm not saying that has not happened. Like, I'm still kind of on the fence of if dad is an actual abuser. I don't think that really has anything to do with Kaylee's death, though. I think she's trying to make it have something to do with it.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people's ears opened up when she described it so vividly, and I think that she knew people's ears, like those dogs on the cartoons when they would hear something, their ear would pop up.
And then they did it.
And so I think she got some...
well, I'll tell you why. You're going to find out whenever they have her, another person from her defense team, that the bald lady, the black lady, the bald lady, who she was a victim.
Yeah.
And that also reminded me of Amber Heard, because Amber Heard had an assistant who was abused, and Amber stole that lady's story. So to me, Casey is stealing this lady's story. Yes, and telling it as her own.
Well, the lady did call her bullshit on it.
I know. I guess she believed her.
Yeah, and that's the problem is, like, I think a lot of the people would believe a story like that because it's believable. But it's very believable.
I'm not a victim of abuse, but I don't think that you would go around being that vivid and explaining stuff like that vividly, you know?
Oh, I don't know. But, and she didn't go, like, did he just molest her? Did he rape her? Like, she didn't go into detail of, like, what actually happened, which made me question it.
Exactly.
Like, when he got under those covers, yes, he moved her hair and put his hand up her shirt or whatever, but, like, that's kind of, like, where it stopped, where if you're trying to make us believe that he's, like, this horrible...
Yeah, because guess what?
Where's the other details?
Because guess what? Then you talked about how your brother did the same thing?
Yeah. But she forgave her brother.
Oh, well, good for her. Then we have the lady from the defense who we were just talking about. She's another part of the defense team.
Janine Barrett.
So she talks about how she was a survivor of child sex abuse. So my opinion is Casey manipulated her just like Amber Heard, which we just talked about. So basically you can go and you're like, if you study what somebody does or study what somebody likes or study, like Amber, like studied Johnny's book, studied his music, whatever. So I feel like Casey went and she studied this lady or just knew her past and just knew how to get to be able to, like, get to her heartstrings, I guess. And you just kind of can figure out how to talk to somebody about that kind of stuff to where they will go and, I guess, defend you or have your back. But she goes on to talk about, this is where she talks about how her brother abused her and her dad abused her from 8 years old to 12 years old.
Yeah.
Then the psychologist this is where we get the whole MMPI, and which this test can be, like, swayed based on who's giving it or whatever. I don't know what the...
You gotta tell them what MMPI is.
Well, what is it?
Oh. I mean...
Manual...
So basically, I don't know what MMPI is, but basically a psychologist came on and said... And remember, Dr. Drew interviewed him and was basically like...
Oh, yes.
How could she not fall on any of the scales?
Minnesota multiphasic personality. It's a personality. It tests your personality.
And so they're trying to see if she was a psychopath, basically.
But the thing is like...
And there was no red flag. She did not fall, like, in any of those categories, according to this doctor.
Well, and that's the thing, like, in the Johnny Depp trial...
Oh God!
It honestly,
It's so funny that everybody had the same similarities too. Like I
well,
watched Megyn Kelly.
it is.
Everybody was comparing
It
Amber
is
Heard
because like
to her.
I've never heard of MMPI until I watched the trial, and that's when you hear, because you have Dr. Curry over here, Dr. Muffins over here, who's this like beautiful doctor who's like everybody's mesmerized by. She's talking about these letters, MMPI, what the hell, and then you have Amber's Dr. Karen over here. Anyways, basically that's where these terms are like in our heads, because I've never heard MMPI, and then I'm like, oh shit, I heard of that one in the trial. But apparently, like, you can read it however you want to read it, I guess. But Dr. Karen over here, Amber, she was like, oh, Amber just had PTSD. And then Dr. Curry on Johnny Depp's side is like, oh no, she had histrionic personality disorder. She had this, she had this. She was not just PTSD. So I guess you can like evaluate
Depends
it
on the
how,
person is putting their eyes on it.
Yeah.
Which is why Dr. Drew was like, there's no way.
Yes.
There's no way at all.
Yes.
So Dad, I have in my notes that, you know, she's appealing to people who were abused in childhood.
Yes.
She brought up the brother thing, right? To just get some more sympathy. But then she also brought up that because they were like, how come you've never told anybody? And she said that she tried to tell her mom about the brother.
Oh, but that nobody would listen to her.
Her mom said, oh, that's why you're a whore.
Oh.
And so she
Was that in the episode?
Yes. Yes. So that's why you're a whore. So she knew right then and there she could not tell her mom if it was a true.
Oh, that's what she claimed.
She was saying if this is a true thing, she knew right then and there that that's how her mom reacted to her brother being appropriate. Imagine how she'll react if she told her the truth about the dad. So that was her reasoning for not telling her mom. Also, people were like, so why didn't you call the cops during this time? And she says, I was just following my dad's instruction. My dad told me to act normal, to go about my normal life, that he will take care of everything. So she is blaming her dad for her going to clubs, which she also says, but I wasn't partying. People keep saying I'm partying, and they'll show like the picture of her boobs. She's like, I was promoting for my boyfriend.
Yes. Yes.
I was actually working. And so when they said, why would you want to raise your kid in a household with with a man who did this to you? And she says, that's why I was working at the nightclubs and doing this stuff. She says, I was embarrassed about my job. That's why I lied about going to Universal Studios, right? That's why, because she didn't want to tell them that she actually worked at the club, but she made good money, and that was her way to get her and her daughter
because her parents
out.
were asking like, why do you have this extra cash?
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's her excuse for saying it was temporary. I was working to get me and my daughter out of that house because I knew what my dad was capable of. But then that's a lie, because she says that her memories didn't come until she was in jail. Didn't come back until she was in jail.
Yes.
So to me, I was like, wait, you're working to get out because you know what your dad's capable of, but then you just said that memories start coming up when you're in jail.
I can't keep up.
Yeah.
I can't keep up. Then we have this guy, Cameron Campagna, who is another roommate of the Tony Lazzaro guy.
Tony Lazzaro was a boyfriend, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Was a boyfriend. And he was like, oh, she acted like everything was fine. Nothing was wrong. She was just this is what you just said. She was just out there helping Tony like promote and whatever. This is whenever she spent those 31 days at their apartment.
Yeah.
So like, it just makes how is your story even making sense if you're there at their apartment for all this time?
Her excuse is, you know what her rebuttal was to that? Did you not see the call logs of how many times I called home?
Yes.
So that's her way of making that excuse why are you asking me that question anymore? I called home 45 times because I was asking my dad. I was concerned. I wanted to know what was going on. And he just told me, it's fine. I've taken care of it. Or she'll be fine. Act natural. And so she's pointing all these fingers to her dad. Like all of her actions are behind her dad.
I mean, it does plant seeds. So I was watching the YouTube and they're like doing the rewatch thing like we're doing right now. And we're talking about how Casey is doing this like rear view mirror thing. Like it's real weird how they're filming this because they're filming it and it's like they're filming it from the back seat of the car and they have her face in the rear view mirror and she's like looking at the rear view mirror, talking to them through the rear view mirror. And it's real weird and I almost feel like it's like done like this like cinematography thing or it's like you're looking back on your life or whatever. And anyways, it's just real weird. But so she's talking about how, what'd she say? I just knew that I had to do what he wanted me to do. So this is whenever she's talking about she had to do whatever her dad wanted to tell her to do.
Yeah.
Whatever her dad said. So this is where she talked about she was doing whatever dad told her to do. She was basically a robot. She says she kept thinking that Kaylee was safe, which I don't know why she never called police. I don't know why she made up the whole Zanny the nanny. And her dad was like, Kaylee's safe. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. Blah, blah, blah. And she then goes on and she says, what? That made sense to you? Yeah, that's what they ask her. That made sense to you? Why would you do that? And she says she was made to believe, she said she believed that her dad kidnapped Kaylee from her and put her through all of this on purpose. Like, put her through all of this.
Her.
It's all about her. But she was still convinced that she was okay. I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
It don't. So she's a very good actor, like very good actor.
She is actually a better actress than Amber Heard.
She is.
Yeah.
But her story, like she's tried very hard to put the pieces together, but there's still like a lot of question marks. It's still pieces that like don't fit, even though she's tried. She has a response for everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Everything.
What else?
Okay. Then we have the finally the remains of Kaylee are found.
Mm-hmm.
So we have skeletal remains are found. This is whenever Casey kind of freaks out in jail because she's sitting there. They take her out of her cell. She's sitting there and she talks about how she can see it on the TV, and then she starts like breaking down. She has her head in her hands and she's like freaking out. Yes. And in my opinion, it's because she knows she's caught. And they have like DNA portions of the remains, and I guess it says Casey says that she should have had an instinct, and then she's like, oh, I don't know why I didn't have this instinct. I should have known something was wrong. Mm-hmm. And it's like, look, she could still be alive. I thought there was still a chance. And it's like, bitch, you held your baby when she was limp, she was wet, she was not breathing, she was heavy, and you thought she was alive?
Yeah. That's the logick. And I'm trying
and
to
also, if you want to go look at this video right now, I don't see any real tears. There's no tears. Want to go back to this one?
I think the people on her staff were talking about people who are abused.
Is there tears?
They tend to
see none.
Ignore the truth, what's really happening, because that's what they've been taught to do. So that was her people's excuse for why she wasn't trying to acknowledge it, that she's a child of abuse. So again, they're appealing to people who have been abused, who probably have been taught to ignore it for forever. You just go on with your normal life and act like it didn't happen. So I don't know. Like it's all great rebuttals, I think. So and by this time she had already, I don't think we'd done it. She had already said that she'd already been a victim before. So she's really trying to get sympathy, in my opinion. Because remember when we did the story, or like when it came out, it was like, who to daddy? Who to daddy? She set up boyfriend at the time. I can't remember his name. He thought he was the daddy for the longest. Finally came out, he's not the daddy. They asked her, who is Kaylee's daddy? Because they tried to insinuate, could your daddy be the daddy? So she was like, no,
Yes,
my father
they asked her if her dad was Kaylee's father.
Yeah, and she was like, no, it's not the father. Kaylee's father. And then she told the story of her being at a party, having too much to drink, waking up, and basically she got raped.
So this bitch has been raped by her dad, her brother, her baby daddy. I mean, this is Rapegate 101. This bitch has got the golden twat.
And so now she's already a victim. She's a victim again. She's a victim again.
She's a victim, living that best victim life.
She's not trying to turn him in.
No.
Did he die?
No. I think one of them.
I feel like
one of them did die.
But I mean, she's not trying to put him on blast like she is her daddy.
She's gonna put her dad and her brother on blast. Like, I'm telling you,
there's still something behind Kaylee's the story of Kaylee's real daddy, like that she doesn't want to come out, so she'd rather make up this story about her being raped, or even if that part is true.
Yeah, she said she was at the party. She don't remember nothing. No,
and I can see how if she's already told her. Well, no. Can't see it. Never mind.
Can't
Take that
see
part
it.
out. Okay.
So then we have they find Kaylee. It's December 11th, 2011. Detectives talk about discovering the body. They find duct tape that was put over the mouth of us. Well, it's at this point it's a skull, and it's a trash bag. It's dumped in the woods.
Winnie the Pooh blanket,
which matches the blanket that was at her house. There was it was placed in this bag that came in a package too, matched the house, just all these things. It basically, everything they find in the woods links them to the house, but the body is just bones.
Yeah.
And then whoever the hell this is, Karen over here, she's yelling at her on TV. She's got the most. Look at that Karen hair. When I watched this, all I could focus was the Karen hair. But they're just basically saying that they are seeking the death penalty, and this is a big shocker because they might have been able to convict her if they weren't seeking the death penalty because maybe they didn't have enough evidence. This is just what I've heard around. Some people say it was a mistake to seek the death penalty based on evidence.
Oh, well, maybe. I don't think that's it. I think we're about to get to the reasonable doubt right now, and it says it here in a minute.
So this is whenever.
So cadaver dogs, have we gotten there yet?
Why did I have cadaver dogs? Okay.
So during the Sunfire that she drove, they did a test on some hair that was found in the Sunfire that she drove. And they tested the hair, and the hair follicle basically said it came from somebody who came from Kaylee. It could have been either Kaylee's or Casey's. Well, but the person that it came from was dead. So that ruled out Casey, obviously. It was Kaylee. Well, her team was saying that your hair follicles can do whatever it does to make it look like you're dead for other things, like if bad nutrients or bad diet or just other things that can contribute to that. But they basically said her body had to have been in the Sunfire that she was driving at the time. And so there's a lot of evidence to link her towards that that make her look worse and worse. And so obviously that body was in the sunfire and it was dusted. But there was multiple cadaver dogs. Some of the cadaver dogs went off at the car. Some of the cadaver dogs did not.
Yeah.
So that posed a question.
So what I found was that they talked about how the defense pointed out how the cadaver dogs alerted the first time, but then the second time they didn't, which was big evidence for the defense. Mm-hmm. And it was because it was an inexact science. And then they start talking about the plea deal. They start talking about the plea deal, but yes, it has to do with all the Jose Baez, which is her attorney, goes in and talks to her and is like, hey, we have this plea deal and we can do this. And all you have to do is you have to say that you're guilty and you'll get 20 years and you have to accept the guilt and you have to accept the responsibility. And that's when I hear she's like, no fucking way.
Yeah.
No way. I am not doing that. I would rather spend all my years on death row. I will never say that I'm guilty.
And that won over 17 more people. But that won over a lot of people, obviously her team, because they were the ones bragging about it. They're like, she was adamant that it was like, no way will I ever admit to that. And so some people would be like, oh, is she that much of a narcissist that she's never going to admit she's wrong? Or is it that she's innocent so she can never admit that she killed her daughter or had anything to do with killing her daughter? Either way, Jose Baez at this point knew nothing about the molestation. She had never told him. Somebody on her team supposedly told him.
It was probably that lady who she was talking to about sex abuse.
Yeah, the bald black
lady.
Janine. And so that's...
But I wonder why she didn't tell him about that. If that was such a big moment, if that led to everything, if that was the whole reason why your daughter went missing, it was because you were abused.
Maybe
must have made it up.
Before Baez, what happens first? Baez comes in, but then so does side piece Crystal come in.
Well, so yeah, then we have this worst prosecutor in America who's trying to give her give her a case, which she's obviously who lost everything and she's terrible, and don't ever hire this lady because she pointed out...
What's her name?
Linda Burdick. Linda buried a dick. I don't know, but I went back and I watched both of their opening statements. I watched Jose Baez's opening statement and her opening statement. Her opening statement is like, it's like suffer. You're suffering having to listen to it. It's so bad. Mm-hmm. It's slow. It's like dragged out for over 2 hours and it's not captivating. You go to Jose Baez's opening statement that's for Casey and you're captivated and you're alert and you're listening because he's telling this whole animated story. She's not. So she is what, this is what loses. The prosecution lost the case. It was a open and shut case to me, as far as who's guilty, who's not. Her team, in my opinion, lost it for her. They just didn't do it. They missed a bunch of things. They focused on the wrong things, I think. And then we have the trunk.
So then
they go on to talk about some evidence about her car and the sunfire, was that what it was that she drove? It says, when I examined that trunk, I found 15 hairs. And there's a lot of weird stuff about the hairs, too.
About the hairs belong to a dead person or not a dead person, period. But I think what did it was the last two things that happened at the end of a trial. When you're part of a jury, you can't always remember every single thing, especially when they go days and days and days. But the ending is it. So at the end of the trial, side piece Crystal, Dad was having an affair, and they found the person he's having an affair with. And they subpoenaed Crystal because Crystal, though she was very uncomfortable with this conversation, got on the stand and said that, you can get a lot out of men after sex. There's something about like when they spew on you or in you, they'll tell you all the secrets in the world, right?
Oh.
That's when you have a conversation with the man. And he told her that Kaylee died from a horrible, horrible accident gone wrong.
Oh, what was the accident?
Somebody, he didn't say the accident. This is somebody not bought in to really the case.
Yeah.
He's screwing the daddy, but she just wants to know what happened to the daughter. She's not for or against Casey. Then Jose Baez comes in because he had just found out that dad has molested her.
Yeah, yeah.
And so he didn't tell her about it. So Casey says that she had no idea that he was going into court bringing up this molestation story. And she said that he wanted her to have a genuine reaction when he talked about it, right? Jose Baez is good at his job.
Jose Baez is good.
So
that's why he won.
And that to me, the molestation, creating reasonable doubt, the dad's even sketchier, right? And then the horrible accident. So we had somebody testify as an accident. Then he brought up the story about the swimming pool and the accidental drowning and whatever happened after that, right? That's how she got acquitted for the crime. So to me, Casey would be winning if she went along with that story. She finally came out and said, yes, it's true. She drowned and I feel so horrible. I don't know why I lied about it. I was 0 years old, right? No. Then at the end of episode 2, she negates the whole story that she got acquitted on. She says there's no way, no how, impossible that Kaylee drowned in their pool because the ladder was up. I mean, that was her only reasoning for saying, but there's no way. She was so adamant. She could not gotten in because the ladder was up. But in her story, she said Kaylee was soaking wet. So producers or whoever is behind the camera was like, how do you explain her being wet? And she says, I can't. And that is my problem, is I can't. And I'm not calling my dad an outright murderer, but she was cold and she was wet, and he was also in the house, but he was not investigated. They didn't check his phone records. They didn't check any of this thing. Why was I the only one investigated? So that is her creating her dad to be even more of a monster. So now he molested her. So what are people going to automatically think?
Oh, that he murdered her, yeah.
If he molested Casey as a young girl.
Oh, that he molested Kaylee, too,
he's going to molest Kaylee.
Yeah.
And she's insinuating that something went wrong or he went too far.
It's interesting.
Because remember, he would put the pillow over her head.
Mm-hmm.
He put the pillow over her head sometimes to muffle her whatever moans. So she's insinuating that could this happen to Kaylee? She doesn't really outright say it.
Yeah.
She's wanting you to put together of everything she told you. She's setting up her dad. So that's where it ended. And she's already called her dad a molester and a rapist. She hasn't outright called him a murderer. She's just talked all the way around it.
Yep.
So part 3 is when we go into how, she's really coming for the dad.
Yep. It's bad.
Yeah. So
there you go.
There you go.
Yes, I love it.
Episode 2. We will see y'all for episode 3. Tell us what you think. Don't forget to
stay aware,
stay alive,
and always be DTF.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.